Get ready to witness the most audacious insurance fraud attempt in Judge Judy's 25-year career. When Karen Whitmore limped into the courtroom wearing a pristine neck brace, leaning heavily on a wooden cane, her face twisted in theatrical pain as she prepared to sue her former employer for $50,000 in medical damages from a workplace injury, she thought she had it all figured out. She had doctor's notes from 3 different physicians, prescription records for powerful pain medications, physical therapy attendance sheets, and an Oscar-worthy performance of suffering that would make Hollywood jealous. Karen believed she was about to collect the biggest payday of her life from a small business owner who couldn't afford to fight back. But what this serial scammer didn't know was that Judge Judy had spent the previous sleepless night doing something that would expose Karen's lies in the most humiliating way possible, creating a courtroom moment so devastating it would be shared over 40 million times across every social media platform in existence. Hidden in the back row of that packed courtroom sat a distinguished-looking man in his 60s with silver hair, wearing an expensive suit and holding a leather medical bag at his feet. He had a thick folder of documents on his lap and had been personally invited by Judge Judy herself. Nobody in that courtroom knew who he was, why he was there, or what was about to happen. When Judge Judy revealed his identity and the devastating evidence he carried, Karen's entire elaborate fraud would crumble so spectacularly, so completely, that the footage would become the most viral insurance fraud exposure in internet history. The transformation from confident scammer to broken criminal would happen in less than 3 minutes, captured in crystal clear high definition for millions of viewers to witness and share. But here's what makes this story absolutely insane and proves that Judge Judy is operating on a completely different level than any other television judge in history. Karen wasn't just faking an injury to collect insurance money. She had created an entire elaborate criminal enterprise involving fake medical records, doctors shopping across 3 different physicians who didn't know about each other, forged documentation, carefully staged social media posts designed to support her fraud, and a web of lies so complex and layered that even her own lawyer didn't know the full scope of her deception. This wasn't some desperate person making a bad decision in a moment of weakness. This was a calculated predator who had turned insurance fraud into a profitable side business, destroying innocent people's lives and livelihoods without a single moment of genuine remorse. What Judge Judy did to expose her in those 3 devastating minutes was so brilliantly orchestrated, so perfectly timed, and so thoroughly devastating that it became an instant masterclass in how to destroy a liar using nothing but facts, preparation, and the kind of judicial intelligence that comes from crushing 20,000 fraudsters over a quarter-century career. Picture this moment if you can. Karen Whitmore, a 47-year-old office manager who genuinely believed she had discovered the perfect get-rich-quick scheme that nobody could possibly detect, strutting into America's toughest courtroom with the kind of arrogant confidence that could only come from someone who had successfully fooled doctors, insurance adjusters, workplace investigators, and her entire office for 8 straight months. She had practiced her limp in front of her bathroom mirror for weeks until it looked completely natural. She had researched which pain medications to mention to sound medically credible. She had studied successful workplace injury lawsuits online and joined internet forums where scammers shared tips on how to beat the system. Karen walked into that building absolutely certain she was about to become $50,000 richer, convinced that this daytime television judge would be just another authority figure she could manipulate with tears and manufactured suffering. She had absolutely no idea she was about to face a woman who had seen every variation of her exact fraud hundreds of times before, a legal mind that had already spotted 12 specific lies in Karen's opening paperwork alone, and a judge who had spent the previous evening building a trap so perfect that escape would be absolutely impossible. Karen Whitmore wasn't born a criminal, but by age 47 she had perfected the art of insurance fraud into a reliable income stream. This absolutely was not her first experience with fake injuries and fraudulent claims designed to extract money from honest people and businesses. At 32, she had sued a local grocery store for a slip-and-fall accident that security cameras definitively proved never actually happened, but the store's insurance company settled for $15,000 just to avoid the legal fees and hassle of fighting her in court. That easy money taught Karen a valuable lesson about how the system actually worked. At 38, she claimed severe whiplash from a minor fender bender in a parking lot, collecting $8,000 from the other driver's insurance despite being the person who had rear-ended them, not the victim. She had learned the insurance industry's dirty little secret that companies would rather quietly settle suspicious claims than spend money on investigations and legal battles, even when they strongly suspected fraud. Smash that like button right now because what you're about to witness will restore your faith that justice still exists and prove that liars always get caught eventually. Hit subscribe because in the next 12 minutes, you'll see the complete and total destruction of the most brazen insurance fraudster ever caught on camera trying to deceive Judge Judy. This isn't just another courtroom case about money. This is a masterclass in why you should never, ever try to deceive America's toughest judge, and why preparation and intelligence will always triumph over lies and manipulation. The 3 minutes that changed everything are coming up, and trust me, you absolutely will not believe what this fake injury Karen thought she could get away with right in front of a judge who had already set the perfect trap. The case that brought Karen Whitmore to Judge Judy's courtroom represented her most ambitious and elaborate con yet, the culmination of everything she had learned from years of successfully manipulating the insurance system. Karen claimed she had catastrophically injured her neck, back, and shoulder while lifting a simple box of office supplies at Henderson accounting firm where she had worked as office manager for 6 years. According to the meticulously crafted lawsuit she filed, this ordinary 15-pound box of printer paper and folders caused severe spinal damage requiring ongoing physical therapy, aggressive pain management with controlled substances, and resulted in permanent disability that would prevent her from ever working again. She was suing Richard Henderson, her former employer and the 62-year-old owner of the small family accounting firm, for $50,000 in damages covering medical expenses, lost wages, future treatment costs, and compensation for pain and suffering that she described in her legal filings as unbearable and life-destroying. What made this particular case different from Karen's previous fraudulent schemes was the absolutely stunning level of preparation and detail she had invested in making her lies appear unshakable. She had somehow obtained medical documentation from 3 completely different doctors who had no idea the others existed, each one diagnosing various aspects of her claimed injuries. She had prescription records showing she was taking powerful opioid pain medications, muscle relaxers, and anti-inflammatory drugs. She had physical therapy attendance records spanning 8 months showing she never missed a single appointment. She had even created video testimony showing her supposed inability to perform basic everyday tasks like reaching overhead to get a coffee mug from a cabinet or bending down to tie her shoes. Karen had spent countless hours studying other successful workplace injury cases, joined online forums where insurance scammers shared detailed strategies, read medical textbooks to learn proper terminology, and crafted what she genuinely believed was a completely bulletproof case that nobody could possibly disprove. Richard Henderson sat in the defendant's chair looking absolutely exhausted and defeated, like a man who had aged a full decade in just 8 months of legal hell. This small accounting business that he had built over 35 years of honest work, sacrifice, and dedication to his clients was being systematically destroyed by Karen's lawsuit and the ripple effects it created. His business insurance premiums had tripled overnight when the claim was filed, forcing him to dip into retirement savings just to keep the doors open. 2 of his longest tenured employees, people who had been with him for over 15 years, had quit because they couldn't handle the toxic environment that Karen's lawsuit created in the office. He was facing absolute bankruptcy if he lost this case, not just from the $50,000 judgment but from the increased insurance costs and lost business that came with having an active workplace injury lawsuit. Richard had trusted Karen for 6 years, given her raises and Christmas bonuses, treated her like extended family, and invited her to his daughter's wedding. Now she was trying to destroy everything he had spent his entire adult life building with lies and manipulation, and he felt powerless to stop it. The Judge Judy courtroom was packed that Tuesday morning with its usual audience of retirees and daytime television enthusiasts, everyone settling in and expecting just another routine small claims case to unfold before their eyes. The production crew had set up their cameras in the standard positions, the bailiff had taken his usual spot near the bench, and Judge Judy had reviewed her case notes one final time before the proceedings began. But there was definitely something unusual about this particular morning that the sharp-eyed audience members might have noticed if they were paying close attention. Sitting quietly in the back row was an unscheduled visitor, a distinguished-looking man in his 60s with perfectly groomed silver hair, wearing an expensive tailored suit and holding a leather medical bag at his feet. He had a thick manila folder of documents resting on his lap and kept his eyes focused intently on the plaintiff's table where Karen would soon sit. Nobody in that courtroom knew who this mystery man was, why Judge Judy had personally requested his presence, or what role he would play in the destruction that was about to unfold. Karen's entrance into the courtroom was a performance that truly deserved some kind of theatrical award for commitment to character. She hobbled slowly through the double doors, her neck brace so pristine and white it looked like it had been purchased that very morning, her wooden cane tapping dramatically on the floor with each carefully measured painful step that she took. She winced visibly every time she moved, as if each breath caused excruciating agony that required tremendous courage to endure. When she finally lowered herself into the plaintiff's chair, she did so with elaborate slowness, adjusting her neck brace with trembling fingers and letting out soft moans of discomfort that the sensitive courtroom microphones picked up perfectly for the millions of viewers who would eventually watch this footage. She had dressed herself in conservative, professional clothing that suggested someone far too honest and respectable to ever lie, someone who clearly took pride in her appearance despite her obvious suffering, someone the audience should naturally sympathize with and believe. Judge Judy watched this entire theatrical performance with the calm, detached interest of a scientist observing a particularly fascinating specimen under a microscope. Her experienced eyes, sharpened by 25 years on the bench and thousands of cases involving every type of fraud imaginable, noted every single detail with the precision of a master craftsman. She observed the brand-new-looking neck brace that showed no signs of the wear and tear that 8 months of constant use would create. She noticed the too-perfect placement of the cane, positioned at exactly the angle that would be most visible to the cameras. She catalogued the theatrical timing of each wince and moan, noting how they seemed to occur at moments of maximum dramatic impact rather than in response to actual movement or pain. Judge Judy opened the proceedings with her characteristic directness, her voice cutting through the courtroom atmosphere like a surgeon's scalpel making the first precise incision. "Ms. Whitmore, you're suing Mr. Henderson for $50,000, claiming you sustained serious injuries while lifting a box at work. Tell me exactly what happened." It was such a simple question, the kind she had asked thousands of times over her legendary career, delivered in a tone that seemed almost casual and conversational. But experienced Judge Judy viewers who had watched her dismantle liars for years would have immediately recognized the subtle edge in her voice, the slight narrowing of her eyes that signaled she had already spotted something suspicious and was now giving Karen just enough rope to hang herself with her own words. Karen launched into her carefully rehearsed testimony with the confidence of someone who had practiced every word, every pause, every emotional inflection in front of her bathroom mirror dozens of times. Her voice was carefully modulated to sound brave and strong despite her obvious suffering, the voice of a victim who refused to be defeated by her circumstances. "Your Honor, on March 15th, I was asked to lift a heavy box of supplies from the storage room. The moment I picked it up, I felt something snap in my neck and back. The pain was absolutely excruciating, unlike anything I had ever experienced in my entire life." She paused for maximum dramatic effect, her hand moving slowly to touch her neck brace with trembling fingers that suggested she was reliving that traumatic moment. "I've been in constant agony every single day since then. I can barely function as a normal human being. Simple everyday tasks that everyone takes for granted, things like getting dressed in the morning or cooking dinner for my family, leave me in tears from the unbearable pain." Judge Judy's eyebrows raised slightly, creating that subtle arch that regular viewers knew was the first warning sign that she had spotted something that didn't add up in the testimony. "Ms. Whitmore," she interrupted with surgical precision, her tone still professional and measured but now carrying an edge sharp enough to cut through steel, "you said the box was heavy. Exactly how much did it weigh?" Karen hesitated for just a fraction of a second, a tiny pause that most people wouldn't even notice but that Judge Judy's trained eye caught immediately like a shark detecting a single drop of blood in the ocean. "It must have been at least 40 or 50 pounds, Your Honor. It was extremely heavy, far too heavy for someone my size to lift safely without proper equipment or assistance." What Karen didn't know, what she couldn't possibly have known because she was so focused on her performance and so confident in her lies, was that Judge Judy had already thoroughly reviewed the workplace inventory records, examined the security footage from multiple angles, and even had the specific box in question measured and weighed by an independent investigator. The box weighed exactly 15 pounds, and the security cameras that Karen apparently forgot existed showed her lifting identical boxes multiple times both before and after the alleged injury date without any visible difficulty, discomfort, or hesitation whatsoever. But Judge Judy wasn't ready to reveal any of this devastating information yet. She was a master at building her case brick by brick, allowing defendants to dig their own graves deeper with each exaggerated claim, each obvious lie, each moment of theatrical overacting. Judge Judy continued her methodical questioning, asking about Karen's medical treatment with the kind of calm patience that made nervous defendants think they were getting away with their deceptions. This was exactly where Karen really escalated her performance into overdrive, sensing what she mistakenly believed was Judge Judy's acceptance of her story. "Your Honor, I've had to see 3 different specialists just to manage this injury. My primary care physician, Dr. Morrison, immediately diagnosed severe cervical strain and referred me to specialists. Then I saw Dr. Patterson, who's one of the top spinal specialists in the entire state, and he confirmed I had degenerative disc damage that would require years of treatment. And then Dr. Chen, my pain management doctor, has had to prescribe multiple powerful medications because the pain is so unrelenting and unbearable that I can't sleep, can't work, can't live any kind of normal life." Judge Judy leaned back in her chair with an expression that experienced courtroom observers would recognize as extremely dangerous territory for whoever was testifying. 3 doctors, she repeated slowly, letting each word hang in the air like an accusation. "That's quite thorough medical care. And all 3 of these doctors independently agreed that your injury was specifically caused by lifting this box at your workplace?" Karen nodded enthusiastically, clearly interpreting Judge Judy's question as interest rather than the trap it actually was. "Yes, Your Honor, absolutely. All 3 doctors confirmed without any doubt that this was a workplace injury caused by Mr. Henderson's negligence in maintaining a safe work environment. They all documented that I'll need ongoing treatment for the rest of my life and that I'll never be able to return to any kind of meaningful employment because of the permanent damage." Then Judge Judy asked the question that made Karen's lawyer shift uncomfortably in his seat and glance nervously at his client. "Ms. Whitmore, can you demonstrate your range of motion for the court? Please turn your head to the left as far as you comfortably can." Karen made an elaborate show of attempting to turn her head, stopping after moving it barely an inch, her face contorting into an expression of such exaggerated agony that it looked like something from a silent film. "I can't, Your Honor. The pain is far too severe. Any movement beyond this tiny range causes absolutely unbearable suffering that brings tears to my eyes." Before we show you the moment that completely obliterates Karen's entire fraud, hit that like button if you think people who fake injuries to steal money deserve to be exposed on national television. Comment, "Justice served," if you believe Judge Judy is about to deliver the most satisfying fraud exposure you've ever witnessed. Because what happens in the next few minutes will show you exactly why you should never, ever try to deceive America's toughest judge who has already set the perfect trap. Judge Judy's expression shifted from patient inquiry to predatory satisfaction, the transformation so subtle yet so complete that the entire courtroom seemed to hold its collective breath in anticipation of what was coming next. "Ms. Whitmore, before we continue any further with your testimony, I'd like to introduce someone who has been observing your performance here today with great professional interest." She gestured toward the distinguished man sitting quietly in the back row, the mystery visitor that nobody had been able to identify. "This is Dr. Robert Martinez, Chief of Orthopedic Medicine at St. Mary's Hospital and a nationally certified expert in workplace injury fraud detection. He has been reviewing your case meticulously for the past week, and he has some very interesting observations to share with this court." The color began draining from Karen's face like water circling a drain, starting with a slight paleness and rapidly progressing to an ashen gray that made her look physically ill. Her hand instinctively went to her neck brace, adjusting it nervously in a gesture that revealed her suddenly rattled composure. "Your Honor, I don't understand why you would need to bring in someone else when I have documentation from 3 qualified physicians who have already Judge Judy cut her off with the precision of a blade severing a rope. "You'll understand everything in just a moment, Ms. Whitmore. Dr. Martinez, please share your findings with the court." Dr. Martinez stood and walked toward the front of the courtroom with the calm, unhurried authority of someone who had testified in hundreds of fraud cases and knew exactly how devastating his evidence would be. "Your Honor, I've conducted a comprehensive review of Ms. Whitmore's medical records, performed an independent analysis of her claimed injuries using established diagnostic criteria, observed her behavior throughout this entire courtroom proceeding, and consulted with the physicians she claims treated her. I can state with absolute medical certainty that her claimed injuries are completely inconsistent with the actual physical capabilities she has repeatedly demonstrated." Karen's voice rose in pitch, taking on a desperate, shrill quality that was completely different from her earlier controlled performance. "That's absolutely not true. I didn't do anything that contradicts my injury. This is completely unfair and prejudiced." But Dr. Martinez continued with the methodical precision of a surgeon making careful incisions. "First, Ms. Whitmore claims severe cervical strain that prevents head rotation beyond a few degrees in any direction. However, when she entered this courtroom approximately 30 minutes ago, I personally observed her turn her head approximately 45 degrees to the left to check the wall clock, then again nearly 50 degrees to the right when the bailiff entered through the side door. Both movements showed full range of motion with zero visible discomfort, hesitation, or protective guarding that would be present in someone with genuine cervical injury." The courtroom erupted in gasps and murmurs as the audience began to realize they had been watching an elaborate fraud unfold right before their eyes. Karen's lawyer was frantically flipping through papers, clearly realizing that his client had lied to him about fundamental facts of the case. Judge Judy raised her hand for silence, and Dr. Martinez continued his systematic destruction of Karen's lies. "Second, her prescription records reveal a disturbing pattern of doctor shopping. She obtained pain medications from 3 different physicians without informing any of them about the others, which is both illegal and a clear indicator of substance abuse or fraud rather than legitimate pain management. Third, the MRI reports she submitted to this court, which I had independently reviewed by 2 radiologists, show nothing more than normal age-related wear and tear consistent with a healthy 47-year-old woman. There is absolutely zero evidence of acute injury, disc herniation, nerve compression, or any of the serious conditions she claims are ruining her life." But Dr. Martinez wasn't finished, and what came next would be the final nail in the coffin of Karen's fraud. "And finally, Your Honor, I took the liberty of reviewing Ms. Whitmore's public social media accounts, which tell a dramatically different story than the one she's presenting to this court today." He pulled out his phone and courtroom staff displayed the images on the large screen for everyone to see. These photographs were posted to her Facebook account during the exact time period she claims to have been severely disabled and barely able to function. Here she is at a hot yoga class just 3 weeks ago, demonstrating advanced poses that require exceptional neck and back flexibility. Here she is at an indoor trampoline park with her children 2 months ago, jumping and performing flips that would be absolutely impossible for someone with her claimed spinal injuries. And here she is lifting her daughter, who according to her own social media posts weighs approximately 45 pounds, which is 3 times heavier than the box she claims permanently disabled her. Karen's carefully constructed performance crumbled completely like a house of cards hit by a hurricane. The neck brace that had seemed so medically necessary moments ago suddenly looked ridiculous and fake. The cane that she had been leaning on so heavily was now completely forgotten, standing uselessly against her chair. Her hands were shaking uncontrollably, her carefully applied makeup beginning to run as sweat mixed with tears of panic and humiliation. "Your Honor, please, those photos are taken completely out of context. I was trying desperately to maintain some normalcy for my children despite my suffering. The pain medications allowed me to push through for short periods, and I paid for those activities with days of agony afterward." Judge Judy's voice cut through Karen's desperate excuses like a knife through butter, cold and merciless and final. "Ms. Whitmore, I'm going to stop you right there before you dig yourself into an even deeper hole than you're already in. Dr. Martinez, in your professional medical opinion, based on all the evidence you've reviewed and observed, did this woman sustain any legitimate workplace injury from lifting a 15-pound box of office supplies? The answer came swift and devastating, each word like a hammer blow. No, Your Honor. There is zero medical evidence supporting any of her claims. What we're looking at here is textbook insurance fraud, pure and simple, combined with possible prescription drug-seeking behavior and perjury. The judgment that followed was swift and absolutely merciless. Ms. Whitmore, you are a fraud and a criminal. Not only are you not getting a single penny from Mr. Henderson, but I am awarding him $15,000 for legal fees, court costs, and the time he has wasted defending himself against your lies. Furthermore, I am formally referring this case to the District Attorney's Office for criminal prosecution on charges of insurance fraud, perjury, attempted theft by deception, and fraud against this court. The gavel came down with a sound like a gunshot, final and absolute. The transformation in Karen was complete and utterly devastating. The woman who had hobbled into the courtroom with a cane and neck brace was now sitting completely upright, her theatrical disabilities forgotten in her genuine emotional breakdown. She was sobbing uncontrollably, her carefully constructed fraud lying in ruins around her like broken glass. Richard Henderson collapsed back in his chair with overwhelming relief, 8 months of nightmare stress evaporating in seconds as tears of gratitude streamed down his weathered face. Within hours of the episode airing, the footage exploded across every social media platform imaginable. The hashtag #FakeInjuryKaren began trending worldwide as millions of outraged viewers shared clips of her yoga poses next to her courtroom performance. The moment when Dr. Martinez revealed the trampoline park photos became the most replayed segment, racking up over 40 million views across TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook combined. Legal experts praised Judge Judy's methodical approach to fraud exposure, and the case became required viewing in insurance investigation training programs nationwide. Karen Whitmore's life unraveled completely in the aftermath. The district attorney filed criminal charges within 2 weeks, and facing overwhelming evidence, she eventually pled guilty to avoid trial. She was sentenced to 3 years in prison, 5 years probation, and ordered to pay $75,000 in restitution to Richard Henderson and the insurance companies she had defrauded. Her husband filed for divorce, she lost custody of her children, and her professional reputation was destroyed beyond any possibility of repair. Smash that like button if you believe Judge Judy delivered exactly the justice this fraud deserved. Comment "Fraud Exposed" if you think every insurance scammer should watch this as a warning. Hit subscribe for more epic moments where liars get caught and karma delivers perfect justice. Remember, in Judge Judy's world, honesty always wins and consequences are always real.